All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a name that you've almost certainly heard, even if you know absolutely nothing about cannabis. And that name is sour diesel.
Yeah, you heard that right. It's been called the Beyoncé of the cannabis world. So the big question is, how? How did a plant that came out of the 90s underground scene blow up into this household name? And why is its legacy still something people argue about today? Let's get into it.
Okay, so this whole story, it doesn't start in some high-tech lab. Nope, it begins in a pretty wild place, a Grateful Dead tour. Now, you gotta understand, these tours were way more than just concerts. They were like these traveling hubs for music, counterculture, and yeah, a booming underground economy. They were basically mobile marketplaces where the absolute best growers and traders in the country would swap their rarest stuff.
So, get this. It all kicks off with a single purchase in a concert parking lot back in '91. A guy known as ChemDog finds these 13 little seeds in a bag he bought. He plants a few, and one of them, just one, turns into this incredible plant that they called Chem 91. And that one plant, born out of pure luck, would literally become the parent to some of the most famous strains on the planet.
So the seeds of this legend had been planted, right? But its real identity, that was forged somewhere totally different. We're talking about the underground scene of 1990s New York City. You have to picture it. A super high-demand, high-price market, no legal shops anywhere. Your reputation, what people said about your product, that was everything. It was the perfect storm, really, for a true luxury brand to be born.
And this whole thing really came down to a small, super tight-knit group of people. First, you have ChemDog, the guy who found the seeds. He shares a clone, which is just a cutting that grows into an identical plant, with another grower, a guy named Weasel. But the real game changer was a distributor they called AJ. He's the one who took it and turned it into an absolute icon in New York City, building its reputation one sale at a time.
Now, you might be wondering about the name. Back then in New York City, diesel was just slang. It was a code word for any really high-quality, potent stuff. So the name diesel was basically just a marketing tool, a way to say, this is the good stuff. So where did the sour part come from? Well, that's where the story gets even murkier.
And there are a couple of wild theories about this. One story goes that a grower labeled a jar Our Diesel, but an S from an old 5 on the jar made it look like Sour Diesel. Total accident. The other theory is way more dramatic, that the stuff was so good it soured friendships and deals because everyone was desperate to get their hands on it. The thing is, we don't know which story is true, and honestly, it almost doesn't matter. The fact that these legends even exist tells you everything you need to know about how unique and in demand this thing was.
And speaking of demand, $50. That's what a single gram of sour diesel would set you back in New York City in the 90s. 50. That really established it as one of the first ever true luxury, top-shelf strains. It was a status symbol.
So, okay, what was all the hype about? Why were people paying so much? Well, it really came down to its unique combination of smell, taste, and the kind of effects people reported.
That signature diesel fuel smell, it's not an accident. It comes from these natural compounds in the plant called terpenes. And you can see here, it's this very specific mix of spicy, citrusy, earthy, and piney notes that creates that super pungent, skunky, and sour citrus smell that is just unmistakable. It's what makes it diesel.
And the effects people reported were just as distinct. The reputation it built was for this really energetic, uplifting, cerebral kind of high, not the sleepy couch lock experience some other strains were known for. This is why it supposedly became a huge favorite for creative work, for social situations, a daytime strain.
All right, so with a reputation like that, it was only a matter of time before sour diesel broke out of the underground and slammed right into mainstream pop culture.
And nowhere was that more true than in the world of hip-hop. New York rappers especially just embraced it. They were constantly name-dropping it in their lyrics, basically cementing its status as the signature smoke of New York City.
And it wasn't just music. It started popping up everywhere. You had Alana on Broad City famously hiding her stash. You had the rapper Action Bronson creating a pasta recipe infused with it, and Redman crediting it for keeping him going in the studio. Sour diesel became more than a plant. It became this cultural shorthand, a reference point for elite, high-energy cannabis.
Okay, so decades have gone by since then. There are new strains coming out like every single day. So why on earth are we still talking about sour diesel? What makes it so special?
Well, that brings us to the biggest question of all. Is the sour diesel you might find today really the same stuff? This question is like at the very center of its legacy now.
You've got connoisseurs who will argue for hours about its authenticity, about different versions or phenotypes, and this endless hunt for what they call AJ's cut, that original clonally version from the 90s.
And this constant argument is really a testament to its impact. To really dig into why some people swear by it as a legend, while others think it's totally overrated, well, we explore all sides of that in our companion debate.
And if you want to cut through the noise and separate the powerful brand from the actual plant, we do exactly that in our critique.
And for the whole entire story, I mean all the incredible details we just couldn't squeeze in here, you're definitely going to want to check out our full deep dive. When you look at the whole picture, from a lucky find at a concert to becoming the king of 90s New York, all the way to a modern-day legend, the story of Sour Diesel is about so much more than just a plant. It's a perfect example of how culture, community, and just plain good timing can come together to create a true icon.
So how does a plant become a legend? It's a wild journey, isn't it? It's all about myth and music and marketing. All these things that took a simple plant and turned it into a legitimate piece of cultural history.
So, to explore this story even further, you can find all these explainers in our complete Sour Diesel series. And hey, if you're someone who values context over hype, you should definitely subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.